this is Mr. Jimi Hendrix. And you might think that, oh, not another excerpt. He was a mind control singer guitar player, and somebody says, called their souls, Jimi Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
From Good Fight Ministries. This is a few years old. And Jimi Hendrix, of course, was a drug addict, or at least officially he did take LSD, marijuana, what else, I do not know. It's a certain Alan Douglas who said now one of the biggest thing about Jimmy was what he believed in. He believed that he was possessed by some spirit, and I got to believe it myself, and that's what we had to deal with all the time. And he was very humble about discussing it with people because he didn't want people to feel like he was being pretentious and so on, but he really believed it, and he was wrestling with it constantly.
Aha. So that's the he that he's referring to.
Yeah.
Oh, split personality.
Fane Pridgeon, he used to always talk about some devil or something was in him.
Okay, so that's not Bruce Lee talking.
No. This is just Jimi Hendrix now. We're switching to Jimi Hendrix now. The main reason is actually because his autopsy, he was dying due to drugs officially, and his autopsy had been done by Mr. Donald Tier, as well as in the case of Bruce Lee. Okay.
Interesting, yeah.
So, from Fane Pridgeon, no, that's 1 second missing. From Fane Pridgeon, I do not know that character. He used to always talk about some devil or something was in him, and he didn't have any control over it. He didn't know what made him act the way he acted and what made him say the things he said, and songs and different things like that just come out of him. But at first I used to think it was a cop out when he'd really done me in. And he'd say, I don't know what come over me, I really can't understand it, you know. He used to just grab his hair or something, or pulls his hair, or stands in the mirror or cry or something. Oh Lord, it was so sad when he would cry. He was maybe the first man, or maybe the only man that I've ever seen cry, you know, but it just killed me when he cried. It seems like to me that he was so tormented and just torn apart, and like he really was obsessed with something really evil. And he said, you know, like you're from Georgia, you know, he said, I should know how, you know, people drive demons out. He actually thought about, you know, if we ever go, because I used to talk about my grandmother and all the weird stuff, you know, and he used to talk about us going down there and having some rude lady or somebody see if she could drive this demon out of him.
I get it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get it. Thank you for going back, Michael.
And you know that he smoked pot, at least, and he's accused of having several other drugs. And if you know that he done a job in Woodstock, yeah, which is controlled by the U.S. Army, that festival was not a free festival just for fun. It was an army experiment. They were handing out drugs and all the stuff. And you know that he was doing drugs big time. It was the end of the 60s. Come on. Everybody was doing drugs. Yeah, even people that you would not have thought about. Tom Bleecker also said he was doing drugs in Hollywood. Everybody was doing drugs at the end of the 60s.
A lot of people, yes.
In Hollywood, L.A.,
right.
the elite, yeah, so to speak, yeah. So it was common
in the parties, yes, in the parties,
yes.
And in the all of the little you know, flings that people would have.
I was not doing drugs in the end of the 60s. I can promise that. Right. I was too young.
Yeah, me too.
And
although I did do drugs, that was in my 30s.
Okay, I never did any of these drugs, but
20s, 30s.
I have to rely on these on these states, on these claims here. You see that it was a CIA-controlled psychedelic counterculture of the 60s. That's also in the case true of the Manson family and in the alleged Sharon Tate murder. Yeah, he died age 27 like Brian Jones, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and Kurt Cobain, and there's also a reason for that, but not now. He played the full character. He played a role in the swinging London and in Laurel Canyon music scene and was made a lead singer and guitarist. Yeah, and he was doing much drugs. He was doing much drugs. He headlined Woodstock Festival in 1969. Yeah, he recorded a live album with the CIA band Grateful Dead. And now it comes really strange. He was born at the same day, but not the same year as Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was born in 1940. He was born in 1942. He was making songs about drugs. Purple Haze being a drug. If I remember correctly, it's marijuana or grass.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. So he died on September the 18th. 18 equals 666 in 1970. So close to 3 years before Bruce Lee died. Okay. Bold as Love theme 1967. Also, Aleister Crowley is bold in his later years, famous satanic guy. And not only a satanic guy, but wait for that later. And it happened to be published on the same day as the death of Aleister Crowley. So the chances are 1 to 365.
Who is Axis? What's this? Axis?
Jimi Hendrix. It's the name of a album. Axis, Bold as Love. And that been published on the 1st of December. That's the death date of Aleister Crowley, which was bold. So
look at the serpents up above.
Serpents above and the sun symbol.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so love for what? The serpent?
Mm-hmm. All Along the Watchtower can be a biblical reference and also reference of Jehovah's Witnesses, because they have also the Watchtower.
Oh, yeah, look at their 7 serpents. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
3 on the left, 3 on the right, 1 in the center.
Yeah, it's been anything but positive, yeah.
Yeah, right.
That looks also like a LSD cover or...
yeah, right.
Yeah, hallucinogen or what else.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is a German article, flashback, Jimi Hendrix and Dolly Dagger. Yeah, but that groupie, Dolly Dagger, is called Devon Wilson, and if you remember that Jimi Hendrix died 1970 officially, she was jumping out of a window in 1971 from the 7th floor in America of the Chelsea Hotel. Yeah. Dolly Dagger is a song written by Jimi Hendrix. It was released posthumous on the Rainbow Bridge, which also is an occult thing, the Rainbow Bridge. Find the end of the rainbow with the fortune to win is ABBA. Gimme a Man After Midnight, a quote from that song. Rainbow Bridge, at the end of the rainbow there's fortune. Yeah. This is song text from Dolly Dagger. She drinks the blood from a jagged edge, been riding broomsticks since she was 15, blowing out all the other witches on the scene. She got a bullwhip. You can imagine where the accusation of having something to do with occult is sticking to Jimi Hendrix, huh? If you come up with that song text of broomsticks and witches.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. From that book, which I have in the meantime been published on my second channel, Alpha at Omega, with the weird scenes inside the canyon, Laurel Canyon covered ops, and the dark heart of the hippie dreams, then we find the following. Jimi Hendrix, who reportedly briefly occupied the sprawling mansion just north of the log cabin after he moved to LA in 1968, so 1 year before the Manson murders, or alleged Manson murders, died in London under seriously questionable circumstances on September the 18th, 1970. Though he rarely spoke of it, Jimi had served a stint in the United States Army whilst the 101 or 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell. His official records indicate that he was forced into the service by the courts and then released after just 1 year when he purportedly proved to be a poor soldier. One wonders, though, why he was assigned to such an elite division if he was indeed such a failure. One also wonders why he wasn't subjected to disciplinary measures rather than being handed a free pass out of his ostensibly court-ordered service. In any event, Jimi himself once told reporters that he was given a medical discharge after breaking an ankle during a parachute jump. One biographer has claimed that Jimi has faked being gay to earn an early release. The truth, alas, remained rather elusive. At the time of Jimi's death, the first person called by his girlfriend, Monica Dannemann, last to see Hendrix alive was Eric Burdon of the Animals. 2 years earlier, Burdon has relocated to Los Angeles and taken over ringmaster duties from Frank Zappa after Zappa has vacated the log cabin and moved into a less high high-profile Laurel Canyon home. Within a year of Jimmy's death, a reported prostitute turned groupie named Devon Wilson, who had been with Jimmy the day before his death, plunged from an 8th-floor window of New York's Chelsea Hotel. On March the 5th, 1973, a shadowy character named Michael Jeffery, who had managed both Hendrix and Burton, was killed in a mid-air plane collision. Jeffery was known to openly boast of having organized crime connections and of working for the CIA. After Jimmy's death, it was discovered that Jeffery had been funneling most of Hendrix's gross earnings into offshore accounts, etc., etc. It's a very interesting book by none other than Dave McGowan, who also wrote that more interesting book called Wagging the Moon Doggy. In another case of a CIA involvement is in the band The Doors. Jim Morrison, who for a time lived in a home on Rothel Trail behind the Laurel Canyon Country Store, may or may not have died in Paris on July the 3rd, 1971. The events of that day remain shrouded in mystery and rumor, and the details of the story, such as they are, have changed over the years. What is known is that, on that very same day, Admiral George Stephen Morrison delivered the keynote speech as a decommissioning ceremony for the aircraft carrier USS Bonhomme Richard, from where, 7 years earlier, he had helped choreograph the Tonkin Gulf incident. A few years after Jim's death, his common-law wife Pamela Corson dropped dead as well, officially of a heroin overdose. Like Hendrix, Morrison had been an avid student of the occult, with a particular fondness for the work of Aleister Crowley. According to super groupie Pamela Desbars, he had also read all he could about incest and sadism. Also like Hendrix and Wilson, Morrison was just 27 at the time of his possible death. Brandon DeWild, a good friend of David Crosby and Graham Parsons, was killed in a freak accident in Colorado on July 6, 1972, when his van plowed under a flatbed truck. In the 1950s, DeWild had been I'm not going into the... You see, it's never ending. It's never ending. I'm sorry, but it makes no sense. We are stuck with Jimi Hendrix, okay? Because Jimi Hendrix was not only affiliated with a German group called Monika Dannemann, which has another problem. Yeah, I'm Monika Dannemann. I was Jimmy's girlfriend. Yeah, and he told me that what he thought and what he felt when he was putting his music through the amplifier. Hey Joe, I hear you shot your woman down. Okay. She was with Jimi Hendrix when he died and built up a life based on their relationship, but in the end Monika Dannemann was the victim of her own self-delusion. When Monika Dannemann died of carbon monoxide poisoning 2 days after losing a court case, most press reports concluded that her death brought to an end a 26-year catfight over Jimi Hendrix between two of his former girlfriends. She was found dead in a fume-filled Mercedes after being found guilty of contempt of court for repeating a libel against a 49-year-old Surrey's doctor's wife, Kathy Etchingham. Both women were girlfriends of the late rock star Jimi Hendrix in the swinging 60s. What a world! What is that kind of a world?
Mm-hmm.
She met Hendrix in 1969 in a Düsseldorf bar. Hendrix in Germany here. Hendrix was at the height of his fame. To Dannemann, he was not just the world's most gifted guitarist, he considered him a prophet from the start. She left Germany, and all this stuff. Some say she delayed calling an ambulance. A few even claimed she poisoned him. That's very interesting. You see this similarity here between Bruce Lee and Jimi Hendrix? Yeah. Some say she was together with Jimi Hendrix September the 18th, 1970, 3 years before Bruce Lee. She delayed calling an ambulance, some say. It's...
Oh, yeah, probably under the influence, I would imagine.
Yeah. If you look at the footage of the final contest, you can see what LSD and cocaine can do. Or what LSD and cocaine do. She believes Dannemann was never Jimmy's girlfriend and had sex. Their involvement lasted but a few days. Aha, you see, maybe she was also set up to investigate some things. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? She's died. Yeah, officially of a suicide with carbon monoxide in a Mercedes-Benz. Yeah, if you believe that, that there's something odd with it. The death of Jimi Hendrix, the unanswered questions. Was the guitar genius unconscious for hours while a girlfriend and roadies removed drugs from the scene? Did someone pour red wine down him until he died? Were there people who wanted him dead? Was his lover to blame? Dr. Bannister said that the body he treated was so tall that his feet were sticking out 10 inches over the end of the hospital trolley. This was obviously not Hendrix, who was only 5'11". So the wine story had nothing to do with Hendrix at all. Note also that Bannister was on trial for fraud when he came forward with that ludicrous story. Jimmy was rushed to the resuscitation room, which proved without a shadow of a doubt that he wasn't long dead at all. Doctors don't try to resuscitate 5 or 6 hour dead bodies. Oh yeah, they do in the case of Bruce Lee.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, you know, nobody knows when he died. Yeah, and what does Bruce Lee have to do with Jimi Hendrix? Oh, a lot. From Popcorn Master, Oblivious Soulmates. The connection between Bruce Lee and Jimi Hendrix was cemented when people got to see a poster of the latter in Jim Kelly's first bedroom scene in Enter the Dragon. Ironically, this poster was not seen in the still of Anna Capri and a prostitute. In its place was a painting of Jimmy. There is another painting which can be seen in the still. It's absent from the first bedroom scene, but it can be seen in the second one. Yeah, that's Anna Capri, and this is Game of Death, and this is Jimi Hendrix without a shadow of the doubt. And also this spiral here has something to do with drugs, the spiral goddess and all this stuff. Back to Bruce, he had a lot of common with Jimmy. Sorry?
Nope, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. Back to Bruce, he had a lot of common with Jimmy. They were born on November 27. Bruce was born in 40, whereas Jimmy was born in 42. They were comparable from a Chinese zodiac perspective, because they shared the same element, yang. In Chinese zodiac culture, you either have a yin element or a yang one, so male-female. Bruce was young metal, whereas Jimmy was young water. This is slightly ironic from a humorous perspective, since Jimmy had an influence on many heavy metal guitarists, whereas Bruce preached the importance of being like water. Yeah, which was not from him. Yeah, the original source is somebody else a few centuries ago. What isn't ironic are the animals attributed to their signs. The dragon is the most symbolic creature of Chinese culture, whereas the horse symbolizes the endowment of black men. Both stars have a connection to Garfield High School. Jimmy attended, whereas Bruce was only there to be a chaperone for the former homecoming queen Amy Sanbo, who was his Japanese girlfriend at the time. Remember? It is alleged that Betty Ting Pei reminded him of Amy Sanbo. Third one. Bruce reinvented the wheel with how he approached martial arts, like how Jimmy did with the guitar. They became icons because they were iconoclasts. 4. Despite their talents, they had to go overseas in order to make a name for themselves in America. Jimmy had to build a following in Europe, whereas Bruce had to return to Hong Kong, where he was already established as a child actor. 5th. Jimmy recorded 3 albums which were released during his lifetime. 3 of Bruce's martial arts movies were released when he was alive. 6. During their final months, they were overworked and didn't get much sleep. Their physical health also had suffered. Their mental health was wrought with insecurities about who to trust and a delusionment with the success they were having. 7. Within their final week, they had 2 lawsuits that they were dealing with. Bruce wanted to sue a film company, Sing Hoi or Star Seas. Remember the banner upon his coffin at the funeral in Hong Kong Palua called A Star Sings in the Sea of Arts? Star Sea Company, other name is Sing Hoi, for implying that he was in their movie. And Star Seas being a front for 40K triad. So you can say that there is a big involvement possible in the case of triads for Bruce Lee's death. Once again, Bruce wanted to sue a film company, Singhorst Darcy Companies, 14K tried for implying that he was in their movie Fist of Unicorn, and he wanted to sue a Hong Kong newspaper, The Star, for libel. Jimmy was involved in a paternity case and a recording contract dispute which was scheduled in the week after his death. 8. Jimmy wanted to leave his manager, Michael Jeffrey. Bruce's equivalent was Raymond Chow. Both mentors were fleecing the income of their stars. Therefore, the argument is invalid that nobody would kill his golden goose when Bruce already had signed to Warner Brothers and already was in negotiations with the rival company of Raymond Chow, Run Shaw Pictures. So, the quote of Jackie Chan, "He just died in somebody's house completely normal," is either completely wrong, or at least it is not completely normal to die in somebody's house. But what shall he say when Jackie Chan, which we have learned last time, was also the target of triads? So
there's no escape.
Yeah, he won't say anything.
No.
And when the author of the biggest biography of Bruce Lee, called Bruce Lee Alive, Matthew Polly, says that Raymond Chow has a reputation for ruthlessness. Raymond Chow was known as the smiling face tiger. History's greatest secret. Yeah? He would nod and agree to everything, and then he would rip you apart. That's the quotation of Matthew Polly. Yeah, that's his book, Bruce Lee and I, Alive. Can you imagine this one? George Lazenby was a presence in the last 7 days of their lives. He was said to be invited by Bruce to appear in the Game of Death, whereas Jimmy took a disliking to Lazenby for how he spoke to one of his girlfriends. Lazenby claimed that Jimmy was originally going to score a film of his called Universal Soldier, but it didn't happen because Jimmy died. Can you believe this coincidence? Can you believe it? I believe there is no coincidence.
Yeah.
10th. Jimmy's final home was the Cumberland Hotel in London, whereas Bruce's final home was at Cumberland Road in Hong Kong. Remember, with that bad feng shui reflector being thrown down to Typhoon Dorothy on the 18th of July. 11. They took drugs which fueled their creativity and resulted in their deaths. Although he took hashish like Bruce, Jimmy's death was due to a combination of different factors. 12. What connects their death is the official stories of being given tablets by the woman who they were currently with, a sleeping tablet for Jimmy and an aspirin for Bruce. 13. When they died, they were found in their apartments of their girlfriends on a Friday. Betty Ting Pei was 26, Monica Dannemann was 25. Author William Saunders claimed that Monica was 26 in his book Jimi Hendrix London. Confusingly, her birthday has been listed as 1946 on IMDb. So that would make her 24. 14. Both girlfriends were found to be suspicious. Monica was reportedly vicious towards Jimmy, whereas Betty went on to marry a gangster who belonged to an organization whose deputy was threatened by abuse. 15. It took hours for each of the deceased to be sent to the hospital because there was a cover-up. Of course, that's opinion, but most likely. 16. The autopsies were performed by the same forensic pathologist, Robert Donald Tier. And I don't think that's a coincidence. A forensic expert recommended by Scotland Yard, Tier had earlier performed the autopsy of Jimi Hendrix, so he knew a thing or two about drug overdoses. Yeah, but it had to rule out before the court because for the life insurance for Linda Lee. Donald Tier, a forensic scientist recommended by Scotland Yard who had overseen over 1,000 autopsies, I thought it was 18,000, was assigned to the Lee case. His conclusion was death by misadventure caused by an acute cerebral edema due to reaction to compounds present in the combination medication Equagesic. Although there was initial speculation that cannabis found in Lee's stomach may have contributed to his death. Tia refuted this, saying that it would be both irresponsible and irrational to say that cannabis might have triggered either the events of Bruce's collapse on May the 10th or his death on July the 20th. Dr. R. Lissette, the clinical pathologist at Queen Elizabeth Hospital, reported at the coroner hearing that the death could not have been caused by cannabis. Sure. My guess is they're all in it. We have found last session that somebody says that a senior pathologist has been given 300,000 Hong Kong dollars to cover it up. That can only be Donald Tia. From that book, from Tom Bleecker, the second husband of Bruce Lee's widow, Unsettled Matters, we found the following. Professor Tia was a quite remarkable witness. According to his testimony, he had a specialist of forensic medicine for 35 years, during which time he had performed over 90,000 autopsies and given evidence at 18,000 inquests. This was one busy man. Figuring a 5-day work week with not one single day's absence for either vacation or illness, Tia was able to average 10 autopsies per day, in addition to slipping in appearances at 2 separate inquest hearings every working day for 35 years. And this was in London, where the police don't even carry guns. In any event, coupled with Dr. Lamb's comments, Professor Tia's testimony was enough to diffuse the theory that Bruce had died of a drug overdose. And that's the only cause of Professor Tia, because to overrule anybody in terms of hierarchy, in terms of don't question the government, don't question authority. He ridiculed the theory that marijuana caused Bruce's collapse on May the 10th, as well as Lee's state of unconsciousness and subsequent death on July the 20th. And it goes on and on and on and on. As the inquest drew to a close, the crowds diminished. It seemed they had initially come to see Betty Ting, Linda Lee, and Raymond Shaw, but following the court's dismissal of the 3 key witnesses, quickly became bored with the complex scientific analysis of the wide assortment of prescription drugs Bruce had been taking. Yeah, blinding you with science. The court did not hear the first 8 who said that there is a third male present. Yeah, there are so many things to question. The court does not question the different timelines the witnesses are giving. They are all just dismissed because the verdict obviously is clear from the beginning. When Donald Tia goes on and introduces into the scene, then London takes over, because Hong Kong was British territory in 1973. Hong Kong police officially was being done by Great Britain, so what do we expect in the Hong Kong court? They are sending an expert of Scotland Yard and he's overruling anybody, so the verdict is quite clear from the beginning, most likely. Most likely. Tia discovered traces of cannabis in each man. Conflicting information has made people suspect foul play involving these deaths. In Bruce's case, former student James D. Mile was so unconvinced by the official story that he decided to do some detective work. As for Jimmy, former girlfriend Kathy Etchingham took it upon herself to become a sleuth. 19th. The movie star and the rock star, speaking of Bruce Lee and Jimi Hendrix, were buried in Seattle. 20. Unreleased material from each star was shamelessly exploited after they died. My, what a coincidence. And you don't have to believe this picture of Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison and Bruce Lee, because that never happened. That is a problem of Photoshop. This is fake. What do we expect from the court when in 1973, 1.5 months before the death of Bruce Lee, the police superintendent Peter Godber left or fled the country? Huh? You know how corrupt then the Hong Kong police is. So how corrupt is the court? And Tom Bleecker is absolutely correct when he says it will never be discovered because now Hong Kong belongs to the People's Republic of China. And so nobody will open the case. Or open the casket, which would then reveal the real cause. You don't think that Linda Lee would approve autopsy, exhumation or what else? You don't think so? When it's now absolutely clear that she lied, that Bruce had not taken any drugs before he has signed the life insurances policies. Yeah. That is absolutely contradicting when the so-called drug letters were found on a flea market. Yeah, so there's contradiction anywhere, and everybody has a certain purpose to lie. So, in the same case as Jimi Hendrix, with all these anomalies, it's the pathologist Donald here.